Hey Trip, here's a quick video of things you might want to check when you're doing this. I've already kind of taken my engine covers off, and I've got the pressure gauge hooked up to the pressure gauge here, but I haven't turned the car on, I haven't done anything. I've just got everything hooked up to where I can start my testing here. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get your gauge hooked up, and there's also a purge line. I find it handy just to run it into like a lawnmower or gas jug or something if you got to purge some air out of the system. And it should just not be pretty much anything, right? Like most of your pressure leaked out when you probably hooked this up. So the first thing you're going to want to do is just see what pressure it's at when it primes, right? So it's important to know what it peaks out at, but it's also important to know if there's any leakage as far as like after the initial prime, right? So what you can do is just go ahead and turn the key on. I'll try to keep the camera on the gauge here. All right, so that's the initial prime, like when you first turn the gauge on. As you can see, it peaked up around what, 43, 44-ish, and then it dropped down a bit afterwards, right? But like it's holding steady that pressure currently. Like it's not slowly leaking off down to say 20 pounds or something like that. If it does, you've got a leak in pressure somewhere, right? Like it could be a check valve as far as the fuel pump goes. It could be that your fuel pressure regulator is leaking. It could be that you have a leak inside of your pulsator or your hose that connects your pump to your sending unit in the top of the gas tank. You've got a pressure leak somewhere, right? Like this is what you want to happen. You want it to pressurize on that initial prime when you turn the key on, and then you want it to hold, right? So now what you might want to do is go ahead and see what your pressure is once you crank the car, right? And I'll go ahead and do that right now. Come over here and fire it up. Now you can see at idle, it's come down a bit. It's hanging out around 35, 36 pounds. To me, that's normal. I haven't had it peg out to 40 while I've got it running. It may do that when you start adding some throttle to it. Come up a bit, but for the most part, it kind of hangs, at least mine hangs out around there. The other thing you'll want to check while you're doing this is you'll want to pull the vacuum reference off of your fuel pressure regulator and then also see where it goes to from there, right? So you can do that with this, and when I do that, it goes up around 43 pounds with the fuel pump just running all the time, right? Now if I put the vacuum reference back on, it comes back down accordingly. So now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and shut the car off. Now you can see it's come back down to 30, but that from my experience has also been normal. What you're looking for is just to make sure, hey, is there any pressure drop over time? This will, if you were to come out here tomorrow morning, right, and check this, it probably would have leaked down. And that's, in my experience, normal. But what you don't want it to do is be a rapid pressure drop, right? Like over the span of me making this video and talking to you, if it had dropped down to say 20 or so, I'd be worried about a leak somewhere, right? So in summary, you want to check what it does when you first prime the system. You want to make sure that that pressure holds. You want to see what it's running at when you crank the car. You want to see what pressure it gets to when you take that vacuum reference right here off of the fuel pressure regulator and see what it runs, and then you should have a pretty good idea if you've got any kind of leakage in your fuel system. Something else that might be handy to do, it sounds like you're having trouble just getting it to idle, but something else might be handy to do once you get it all resolved is you can flip this dial over to where you can kind of see it from inside of the car. It might be handy to, if you're troubleshooting fuel pressure problems that way, You can just kind of close the hood up a bit here, sort all these hoses where you can kind of get the hood closed, and you can also kind of see what fuel pressure is happening as you go down the road. It doesn't sound like what you're referencing that would be all that helpful, but it's just a tip in case you do have some issues in the future and you want to check your fuel pressure then. So anyway, I hope this helps kind of let you know what you need to do and what you need to check. If all this kind of looks like the fuel pressure is holding and it's hitting the targets that it needs to hit, your problem is elsewhere. Like your fuel system's pretty well sorted at that point. You may have, if it's having idle problems, there may be a vacuum problem you need to go out and troubleshoot. There may be a cracked vacuum line. You may have an IAC that under your throttle body here that needs to be cleaned out. This would just be the end of kind of troubleshooting your fuel system. Hope that's helpful.